It's funny because, hi everyone. Hi alchemists. Welcome or welcome back. My name is Ava, aka Queen Midas Life Alchemist, and I am here for another Tribe Talk with our new friend and my lovely co-host, Emily Dini. Please correct me if I said your last name
Yeah,
wrong.
Dini, like Houdini.
Ooh, ooh, sweet. Thank you. Um, yeah, so Emily she is I met her through Liz, so I'm gonna start there. She's a mutual friend through Liz. I've shared some of her content actually in my Telegram chat, where she has like some of her TikToks, and they're focused on like worthiness and love and relationships. Um, Finding out like where you might have patterns that are keeping you from finding the right person, or you're like hitting these walls in relationships and whatnot. And so that is just, I'm barely touching the tip of the iceberg, and so I'm just going to give the floor to Emily to introduce herself to you all. So Emily, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say thank you so much, Ava, for having me here. This is super exciting. This is the first sort of thing I've ever done with like a YouTube live. So I'm super excited for this to be
Yeah.
my first experience too with this. I think what better way to kind of break into that. So yeah, a little bit about what I do, and you did a great job touching on it. So I coach primarily women. I do have one man, but I'm mostly coaching women at this point on things related to emotional health, self-worth, and I initially started out with just helping people on their inner healing journey, and then as I continued helping people in that department, I realized how much overlap there is with dating and relationships, and so there was kind of a very natural transition to where now I primarily help single women who want to find a healthy relationship, but who recognize that finding a healthy relationship really starts with them becoming healthy themselves. And so, yeah, a lot of what I focus on is things related to self worth, related to subconscious belief systems. And we do a lot of work with kind of healing your inner child, or you could call it shadow work, with the different kind of lenses that people think about it. So, yeah, that's a little bit about what I do.
That's awesome. And excuse me, I'm like sharing the video in
You're good.
my
You're good.
Telegram chat because I'm like, oh my God, I didn't tell them to join me. Hi, Denise.
You're good.
So I was
Yes,
listening.
share
I'm
away.
just,
Share away. No, you're good. You're good. I know you're not like, I'm going to invite this guest on here and then ignore her. I know that's not what you're doing.
I'm like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Yeah, good to do.
Okay. I totally meant to do this like 15 minutes ago
You're
and
all
forgot.
good. You're all good. I think I just shared a link on my story literally 5 minutes before we started and was like, guys, please come to this.
Yeah.
Like, this is the link. So yeah. But here we are.
Sweet.
We made it.
Hi, Rhonda. Okay, this is
Hello.
Rhonda is one of my Patreons. Denise is in the chat as well. Hello, Denise. Denise,
Hello, everyone.
let's see.
Oh,
I
how do I? Oh, there
she
we go. Oh, I see
there it
Elizabeth.
is. Yeah,
Hello.
Liz is
Okay.
here.
I didn't even see. I was like, okay, I see private chat and comments. Cool. So that's kind of the chat. Aw.
Can you see their comments?
Yes, I can now. I can. I didn't realize I had to click.
Mm,
I can
cool.
see like, I think they're just public comments. I see where the Les Olive Show is saying hello and some different ones. So
Hi,
yeah, cool.
everybody. So welcome, and we might have people coming in slowly because okay, so the women that we like Liz and I collaborate with,
Mhm.
we've started to form this network where we have a lot of the same overlapping subscribers.
Yeah.
So if one person's live and then somebody else starts a live later, like we hop over to their chat, and then it's like we, and I call it going to the neighbor's house, and
Oh,
so it's
that's
like. So we're like we have a live chat at our neighbor's house, so we'll like hop around. So we were just in a live on Mary's channel, and
makes
then
sense.
our friend Helen, who usually goes live on uh, Wednesday nights, she went live too. So a lot of people are there. So we might have people
Okay.
streaming, and they're streaming in now. JR is here. Mary is here. Hello, Mary. This we were just in her live chat. So you all, for the people just now joining, Listen up, JR. Yeah, this is on love and relationships, JR. You too can be a worthy man. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
so you all, this is the lovely Emily Dini, and do you want to give a little overview again for there's
Mhm.
some new people in the chat?
Yeah, definitely. So for everyone coming in, so I'm like, how did I explain it before? I can come up with something similar. So I primarily coach women on things related to self-worth, related to emotional health. And then I kind of explained, I guess just to Ava, probably initially, while y'all were still arriving, that focus on emotional health and self-worth, as I continued to work with people in that area, there was a really natural progression to kind of relationships and dating. A ton of my clients who were struggling with self-worth were also struggling in dating. And so now there's been kind of a very natural transition to the women that I primarily work with are single women who want a healthy relationship, but they know and recognize that in order to have a healthy relationship with someone else, they have to have a healthy relationship with themselves. They have to work through the different things that are holding them back from creating those relationships, the things that are constantly kind of drawing them to unhealthy people. And a lot of us say that we want a certain thing, but if our self worth doesn't really align with what we actually want, then we end up not getting that. We end up self sabotaging in a lot of different ways. So that has been part of why I really focus on self worth and different other elements of emotional health to help women create these healthier relationships.
Yeah, that's so awesome and so valuable for a time right now. Like, especially with just the toxicity in dating culture and
Mhm.
what we see, what's highlighted and almost not almost celebrated in social media and songs, and especially like I hate to to point it out, but let's be real, especially rap songs where the women are highly masculine, highly masculine in what they talk about and the way that they number one speak about themselves and other women, and then also how they speak about men. So like I think it's really good that you're doing, you know, your I guess your mission, or like your what you're offering people
Mhm.
is teaching them how to access the pain and the whatever within themselves that needs to be addressed, acknowledged, and healed, so that they can have and attract healthy people, whether it's platonic or romantic relationship, or like partnerships, even like
Yeah.
opportunities into their lives, and stop attracting the crap that they're reflecting outward. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think it's really cool.
Yeah, totally. And you bring up a great point that this isn't just related to romantic relationships. Like, if you have things that are really unhealed within you that are causing issues in your relationships, I guarantee they're causing issues in your friendships, issues in your familial relationships. And that's also a really great point about business relationships, too. So we are not in like a vacuum or a container where it's just our problems showing up in one relationship. They pour out into every other relationship that we have. Mhm.
Everything. Yep.
Yeah.
That has been a huge part of my life, has been healing. Well, and over the past, it really started the past maybe 5 years, where I really started to dig into my crap, and started to realize that everything stemmed from my family stuff.
Mhm.
And because I've relationships have not come easy to me my entire life. Like it's, and I didn't understand why, because I'd see friends that were super close with their parents, and like best
Mhm.
friends with their sister or their brother, and blah blah blah. And that was always so intriguing to me, and I didn't understand why I couldn't have that, or why I couldn't have uh, healthy interactions with the, you know, with romantic people, or
Yeah.
partners, or the opposite sex, or anything, or even like um, job situations. It
Mhm.
was just like this disconnect that I could not figure out. And
Mhm.
then a lot of it, I mean, it starts with self, and a lot of it starts with the home stuff, like from
Yeah.
childhood.
Mhm.
beliefs around those that your like upbringing and environment and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. I know that, like, I can relate to a lot of things that you talked about. And a lot of what led me onto this journey, ultimately, struggling in a romantic relationship, is what kind of pivoted me into, like, I started working with a coach. That's why I really love coaching. I did therapy for a little while before that, but I found that coaching was just this whole other world that was such a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And what led me to that was struggles in a romantic relationship. But once I started doing that work, I was recognizing how it was also related to, like, other relationships in my life too. And it's like you don't even have the awareness that things could be different
Hmm.
until people start to point those things out. Or, like you talked about, you started to kind of recognize, like, wait, other people don't have all these issues with their sister or their parents or whatever it may be. And I had a similar thing with my dad, where I was never close to my dad growing up at all. And he was textbook emotionally unavailable. And I then went on to choose a lot of emotionally unavailable men for people to date. And obviously, that never worked out with any of them. Um, but until I kind of allowed the experiences that were triggered by that relationship, until I allowed myself to look deeper into those, I didn't really recognize that there are so many other elements to it too. And it really does stem back to childhood. And it's kind of like a running joke where people will be like, "Oh, where did this come from?" Like, "Huh, wonder if it came from my childhood." Like, wonder if it was my relationship with my mom. But one thing that I focus on a lot with clients, and that tends to be a common thing used in coaching modalities, is really looking at subconscious belief systems. And our belief systems are primarily formed within the first 7 or so years of life.
Hmm.
And so it literally does go back to that, to those initial years in childhood. And then basically everything beyond that point is pretty much a reinforcement of those beliefs that we originally formed. So, like, sometimes we have experiences later on in life, and we think that that experience, like maybe it's a really bad breakup. We're like, oh my gosh, this breakup is what is causing all this pain for me, when really the things that you are experiencing, the lens through which you're viewing that breakup, comes from a lot earlier. So,
Hmm.
for example, if I, uh, or I can talk about previous. So I went through a very short-lived, but very, like, up and down relationship. And it was like a month, so I couldn't even call it that, years ago. And what I came out of that thinking and asking myself was, like, why didn't he want me? Um,
Hmm.
what, like, what made me not worth wanting to him? And someone else might think, why am I not worth choosing? Or am I not enough? What else could I have done? What if I had done more of this or more of that? And so our responses to those situations reveal what our beliefs actually are, what our subconscious beliefs are. So mine, about being like, why doesn't he want me, is related to a belief in my childhood that I was just inherently unwanted. And
Hmm.
so that was what I ended up, the lens that I had over that situation.
Yeah.
Kind of a long tangent.
Like, girl, you preaching because like I did it. Those are like totally similar things that would go through my head. Is
Mhm.
like especially the why wasn't like why wouldn't he choose me or like
Mm.
that one? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really common one. And I don't know if anybody else wants to comment any ones that you've, like kind of, what are the questions that you torture yourself with after you've been rejected? Those are good insights to kind of look at, where did that belief come from? Where is that from? Let's see. We have a comment. Oh, they have trust issues with family and friends, so it's me, not them. Um, that really kind of depends. Let's see. Is it Kate Earns? Uh,
That's JR.
JR. Okay. Yeah. So after all this, I have trust issues with family and friends also. So it's me, not them. So yeah, the short answer is that it depends. It could be both. Um, if you have trust issues specifically with your family, they're probably part of the reason that you do have trust issues, because they're the it's like the fire, the that cast the iron. I don't know all these things, but it's like uh all the analogies are leaving me. Like they're the one who installed the buttons. There we go. That's an analogy. Like they're the environment that created those triggers for you. But if you have the tools, if you have the knowledge, the process of how to look inward and actually get compassion and healing into those places, then you don't have to carry intense trust issues over into other relationships.
Mm-hmm.
We have an enormous capacity for healing and for growth. Let's see, Elizabeth just answered my question of like, what's the phrase that you torture yourself with
Mm-hmm.
or have in the past? Why does everyone always leave me? Yes. Yeah. So when this is our phrase, it often comes from a fear that we are worth leaving or worth abandoning. So, like in those first 7 or so years of life, we're really just trying to make sense of, why can't I get my needs met by my family? Why can't I get connection consistently? So a lot of it's like on a more healthy scale, we're probably thinking more about getting our emotional needs met. But in cases of neglect, we're probably also like, why can't I get actual physical needs met either? So in that attempt to make sense of things, we come up with meanings, or we create these belief systems to try to understand our environment. So if we see people walking out of our life constantly, or figures who are really important to us, like especially mom or dad, who's just absent or they completely leave our life, then it's a very logical conclusion for a young brain that can't rationally understand what's going on to think, oh, it must be something wrong with me. I must be the one. Like knows my past pain. I do, but I'm actually just talking in generalities. um, so yeah, we're trying to make sense of things, and we come up with a lot of conclusions that aren't actually true.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we don't know how to look at those or how to get to the root of those and recognize those beliefs are there, then we end up basically living out those beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
We continue them, we perpetuate them in our lives.
Yeah,
So,
it's like we look for them. Well, where attention goes, energy flows. So
mhm,
if you have that subconscious
mhm.
program playing, and that's what you're feeding yourself, then that's what gets projected outward, and that's what gets magnetized, and then there's that feedback loop of like, oh, this is what life is showing me. This must be the truth, and then it's like this whole cycle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm. I
Totally.
teach a lot about that on my channel. Like
Yeah.
just
Okay. Yeah. So they're probably like, we know this already,
oh
Emily.
yeah, everything you're talking about, this is right in alignment with stuff.
Normal conversation for an
Yeah,
episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
why
Um,
wanted you here?
yeah. Vibing. Um,
um,
Yeah, let's see. Rhonda. Yeah,
Wanda.
dysfunctional families mold us like clay, and it is very hard to break free from the mold.
Mhm,
Yeah, it definitely can be. And that's why I'm such a proponent of not trying to do everything on your own, because we all have blind spots. And even just being around friends, people who have different mindsets or different ways of operating than we do, can be like that little thing that enters our brain that's like, wait a second. Kind of like you were talking about, Ava, of like recognizing other people having like relationships with their siblings or like being close with their families, where you're like, wait a second, there's something's not right here, or there's a different way of operating. We kind of
mhm,
just need a hint of there could be something different, as well as like the openness of, I want to evaluate if if there could be a different truth, if a different belief could have validity. Mhm. Yeah. And then Elizabeth, yep, get out of the echo chamber. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. See, had an amazing family, but there's always that one thing. Whoop, like you. I think there's a continuation to that comment.
I do too.
I'm like, think we're only getting part one.
What
But
else? What else?
even I've been talking a lot about like scarcity and abundance mindset recently, especially in dating. And I think you might have you mentioned that? Have you been talking about that recently, Ava? You
I
maybe have
don't
just been
know.
commenting on my stuff.
I
That way.
probably, well, I commented on your, I think I shared it actually in my
Oh,
Telegram.
thank you.
Um,
um, but what
yeah,
you were okay, well, I was just gonna add to what were you were saying about oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my train of thought. It's related somehow. Scarcity mindset and basically just the whole thing of you know, questioning your beliefs and not like not staying in the echo chamber. It was something you said. I'm gonna segue there anyway, and then maybe it'll connect.
okay.
But like, where did, you know, as far as like, where did some of our beliefs come from and from our families? And oh, you were talking about the cycle where
Uh-huh.
you're reinforcing things that are like not healthy or not true, but we keep getting more evidence that, like, oh, yeah, this must be true. We're like stacking on more evidence for honestly not true and unhealthy belief systems.
Hmm.
If we don't know any different, though, it's kind of like, well, what do I do? But this applies to like scarcity mindset too. So I was kind of putting together some content recently about the whole scarcity and abundance mindset, particularly in dating recently. And I was kind of asking myself, you know, where might scarcity mindset come from? And as I mentioned, I teach a lot on subconscious beliefs, help my clients recognize those. And so the way I've come to kind of understand and explain abundance and scarcity mindset is that it's a collection of these beliefs. So it's not just one. Like one belief could be there are no good men out there,
Hmm.
um, or all men are emotionally unavailable, all men leave, things like that. Or if you know, for let's see if JR's still here for the one guy, all women want to take advantage of men, or you know whatever it could be. So you have a collection of these beliefs that sum up to feeling like there's scarcity or to feeling like there is abundance. And so sometimes we actually, let me start at the beginning. So, how this can happen, let's say there's a belief that there are only emotionally unavailable men, right? There are no good men, there are no emotionally available men. Well, we go after what feels familiar and what feels safe. So, going back to the whole family dynamic, let's say, okay, let's like use my story. My dad was super emotionally unavailable. And so I ended up going after what felt familiar because oftentimes what feels familiar is predictable and so it feels safe.
Hmm.
Even if that predictability or that safe dynamic is going to be more painful in the long run. It's what we often choose if we're not aware, if we're not working on healing the wounded parts of us. So, after enough time of repeating that cycle of going after people who feel familiar but who aren't healthy. So, for me, after the going after emotionally unavailable men, my temptations after that point were to think that all men are emotionally unavailable. And then because I wanted emotional connection, once we got to a certain point in the relationship, I had at least 3 or 4 different experiences where the guy would basically run away. He would realize like, "Whoa, I do not wanna open up. There's too much in there that I don't wanna deal with." And so he would leave. And so then on top of all men are emotionally unavailable, I also developed this belief of all men run away. Like, as soon as things get to any level of depth, they're gonna run away. Well, if that continues on over time for like, okay, so for me, it was maybe a span of like 6 years that I was really consistently doing the same thing. But imagine some of us do that for decades. Imagine how much evidence we have, evidence built up after 15, 20 years of chasing the same safe people. Yeah. How likely are we to think there are no good men out there when we have decades of evidence to show for it?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of women at that point, and potentially men too, will often feel really jaded at that point. They'll feel really hardened. They'll feel hopeless and basically like it's just not worth trying again when that's going to be the only option. And the good news is there is a different path, but it does require intentionally looking inward.
Mhm.
It does require stretching yourself. It does require really tending to the parts of you that are really, really hurt, that are really wounded. So, yeah, beliefs were in that feedback loop. That's exactly how scarcity mindset works too.
Yeah.
Um, okay, how do you recognize an emotionally available man? Okay, so I could give you a few things to look for, and I can do that, and I've made content on this. But I really like to encourage women to tap into their intuition and their inner knowing. If you can become emotionally available, emotionally open, emotionally healthy yourself, then when you start dating men and it feels like you're up against a brick wall, you're gonna feel so repelled. You're gonna be like,
Mhm.
"Ooh, like, that doesn't feel good." So, I think a big thing to recognize is, like, do you feel safe around that person? Do you feel like when you extend a piece of vulnerability that it is also met with vulnerability? And so there's also this spectrum where you meet someone on, a first date or a first few dates and they trauma dump on you. That's not good. But then on the other end of the spectrum, we have where they are a brick wall, there's no emotional vulnerability. So, a few things that I would say you can look for as far as being emotionally available are recognizing how does he respond to you expressing your feelings? Does he change the subject? Does he try to fix the situation? Does he look or seem like really uncomfortable and doesn't know what to do with it? And I think also don't take one circumstance and make it mean that he's emotionally unavailable. You really want to get to know someone through time. You have to see them through repeated experiences of probably at least a couple months, unless they're extremely like no vulnerability at all, and you
Mhm.
can tell really soon. Often it takes 2 to 3 months to where they're kinda getting to the bottom of their barrel. They're getting to the edge of the depth that they're capable of. In a sense, they've only met themselves so deeply, and you start to meet them at that level, and they can't go any deeper.
Mhm.
So a big one is, yeah, how does he respond to you sharing your feelings? How does he talk about his emotions or his feelings? How does he talk about hard experiences he's been through? And when you first meet someone, you aren't looking for, again, trauma dumping. Here's my whole story, and I'm telling you all these things. That's a red flag. What you are looking for is paced vulnerability. So, are they sharing things that are appropriate to share for how long you've known them? If you've gone on like 4 or 5 dates, they're probably starting to open up a little bit more, but they're not necessarily, yeah, dumping everything on you and sobbing at the at the restaurant table. Most likely. Um, so yeah, just kind of like is the pacing of the vulnerability appropriate for how long you've known each other? And if you're getting to a point where you're like several months in and you're like, I feel like there's not a lot of emotional depth here. I feel like they're not really opening up about things, or it takes a lot for them to. Um, that's where I would kind of start to question and think that maybe this person isn't very emotionally available. I think another one is maybe not having a ton of knowledge of their own emotions, not really knowing how to express what they're feeling. So those are all kinds of things you could look out for. But yeah, I would say by like 2 to 3 months, if you're like not feeling like you really know them on a deeper level, at least than, when you first started seeing them, that's probably something to address with them. And if it doesn't seem like they are capable of going deeper, then say if you really want someone who is emotionally available, it's probably time to move along.
Um,
So yeah, I
Thank
hope that
you
was
for
helpful.
yeah, it was. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your upcoming workshop or
Yeah.
your master class. And let me see. Um, Let me see if I can get allow you your screen.
Okay, I think I have a thing down here. I don't know if I'm able to click on it, but I do
Oh,
see
you have,
present.
yes,
Mhm.
that's for you. Yes.
Okay, yay. Okay, let me see if I have it pulled up a few different places. So slides. Okay, let's
Oh,
see.
cool. Rhonda said that helps a lot.
Okay. Oh, perfect, perfect. Good. I'm so glad. I do have It's been a while. I don't know if you're on TikTok at all. It's been a while, but I did make a video that was like 5 signs or something like that, which I mostly recapped those. But okay, let's see. So it looks like I have to upload a file. Okay, so I'm glad I did save it as a PDF. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Worthy Woman sneak peek.
And also,
Okay.
y'all, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and
Yeah.
we can have Emily address them in a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so it looks like, oh, it says it's processing. Hopefully that doesn't take too long. Otherwise I can try a different way. I don't know if there's a way for me to just share my like desktop or not. Just say it's processing.
Did it give you that option? Because it should say, like, when you press present.
Oh, share screen. Oh,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
There we go. Okay. So let's see. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can share it out of Canva. Let's see. We'll present this. Okay, can you guys see this?
Okay, here it
Like,
is.
it says the Worthy Woman Masterclass sneak peek. Do you see that?
I'm adding it to the stream.
Okay. It's like,
Here it comes. I'm
there we
adding
go.
it. There it is.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because when I look at it,
Ooh.
oh, the other one's
Okay.
right now. Yeah, I like have to, when I'm looking at it, I can't see you, but that should be
Which
okay.
one do you, oh, wait, do you want the
I,
slide or the screen?
so when I look at my window, yeah, when I look at my
Mm-hmm.
slides, I can't, like I have to be in a different tab. So I don't know. Let me see if I can click on the other one here. Do you see how there's like sharing my screen and then it looks like the slides are done. Maybe I should stop share. Let me do,
Okay, I
okay.
just
Yeah,
added the
this works.
slide.
Perfect.
Okay,
Okay, let's do this one.
cool.
I can see you guys. Okay, so yes, I think some of you here might already know since Ava has shared a little bit, but I'm having a master class this Saturday at 2 different times, all about well, discovering your inner worthy woman. And yeah, here's our tagline: discover your inner worthy woman and stop settling for halfway love. So it is going to be talking a bit about relationships and dating, but also, as we've talked about, those things pour over into all different areas of your life. So the theme is really worthiness, self-worth. And so even if you are not a single lady, there's still a benefit to coming, especially for the sisterhood of it. It's probably not for the one guy hanging out here, though. So, all right. Yeah, this is kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying sorry, JR.
Yeah, sorry, JR. So this is kind of a sneak peek and almost like an intro to the masterclass. So what does self-worth impact? What do you think? Any guesses? Anybody want to throw anything in the chat? These are kind of, what?
I'm just in the background hype girl.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
like
no, I mean, it's interactive.
anybody.
It's interactive. Y'all tell me. So this is kind of joking, but everything, at least a lot of different areas of our life. And then who would benefit from working on their self-worth? Yep, Elizabeth, there we go. Who do you think would benefit from working on their self-worth?
Everyone.
Everyone. So the fun part about healing is that you're never done. And so there are always new layers that come up. And yeah, there we go. Elizabeth, I'll give you a prize, throw you a t-shirt,
Yeah.
um, her gold star. So yeah, the work is never done. No matter who you are, no matter how old you are, there are always more layers to unearth. Because really the healing process is bringing you back to a more authentic version of yourself. It's bringing you back to a more compassionate and more self-accepting version of yourself. And that is always an area that we can continue to grow in. So, what is self-worth? Anybody have any ideas or want to give it a shot at explaining? Like, how do we define self-worth? What does that actually mean? I feel like I should have like music like do 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 do.
Mhm.
See, well, let's see how y'all are. I'm giving you long questions to answer when I have just a slide to click. It's not really fair, but the way I describe it is really it's your self-perception of how positive or how negative it is. Self-worth is the term we use to describe how much value we feel like we have or we think we have, as well as like what gives us value. So that's going to be something we are going to touch on, of the piece of what we think gives us value. So it's your self-perception. And then you guys probably all know this, but in case there's a little confusion, your self-worth isn't like your value itself does not change. Your inherent value changes. What changes is how valuable you see yourself. So it's your perception of yourself that changes. It's not actually anything about what you're worth that changes.
Yeah.
So we're going to touch on some common myths about self-worth. And y'all can let me know, get ready with your type in, if you relate to any of these things. So the first one is that having high self-worth is equal to like being arrogant or having a really big ego. You ever heard of people like thinking of like, oh, if you have a lot of self-love, then you just like, it's like the whole idea of, oh, you think so highly of yourself. And that's framed in like a negative way.
Yep.
Which
Mhm.
it can be, but not because you have high self-worth. So the truth is that arrogance and ego are actually masking self-hatred and
Mhm.
low self-worth. So if we take our personal triggers aside, meaning sometimes we feel uncomfortable, sometimes we feel upset around certain people, sometimes they bring out what's in us, all of that aside, when people have really high self-worth, we often actually feel very comfortable around them. We often feel very safe to be our authentic selves. And we often feel challenged in a certain way to sort of meet them at that level, to rise in a very positive way. So being around someone of high self-worth often calls us higher.
Yeah.
Okay, number two, that thinking highly of yourself is selfish. Okay, and that's kind of related to this one about like as ego, but also there's kind of this idea, especially in a lot of like religious circles, where it's like, well, who am I? Who am I to like think that I'm just the bee's knees? Like, why could I think that about me? Um, and so this is actually how this plays out. Our ability to love others selflessly without strings attached is directly related to our ability to love ourselves unconditionally.
Hmm.
So I have a client, who my one male client, who he and I have had this conversation a lot of times because it just seems so contradictory to what his belief systems have been for the 30 years of his life. And so we talked about him, and a lot of people probably relate to this. Who relates to being like the helper or the giver, where you're the one like doing everything for other people? Yeah.
Well, I used to.
You used to, yeah, exactly. That was me too. So I'm like finally kind of to where I don't really do that, but stuff
Mhm.
always happens in layers. So,
Yeah.
okay, so when we are doing that, yeah, Rhonda says yes.
Okay.
Hear me out on this. I'm going to try to paint it well, but it might come across harsh. We're going to do our best. When we are doing things for other people, there are strings attached. If we're doing it from a place to hold on, let me think of a better hold on. Let me rephrase this. So basically, if we are the people who are the helpers, the givers, the doers, we often in childhood never learned how to directly ask for what we needed. Or
Mhm.
we learned that we weren't allowed to. We didn't feel like we deserved that. And so that ends up with adults later on in life giving, hoping that we will get something back.
Mhm.
And so there are strings attached to that. And so what allows us to actually give unconditionally is separating our needs from what we do for other people and just being direct, asking for what we actually need. And so we have to value ourselves so highly, think that our needs matter, think that we are worth asking, we are worth being supported, we are worth other people loving us in order to meet our needs in a healthy way so that we aren't giving hoping people will meet our needs,
Mhm.
so that we can actually feel full, get our needs met, and give as a totally separate action.
Mhm.
Does that make
And
sense?
yeah, not coming from a place of lack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you truly are coming from a place of deficit when you don't know how to
Mhm.
get your needs met in a healthy way. We do all these weird things to try to get them met indirectly.
Yeah.
Because it's again the whole thing of like we didn't learn a better system growing up, and so we have to as adults, or we get to as adults. So yeah, this is one that's why it's so important to have that self-worth, because it allows us to actually interact in a healthier way in our relationships, and that's just one example. Okay, myth number 3: if I feel pretty confident, then I have high self-worth. Now, that might seem kind of counter to what you would expect. And the truth is that it depends. If you have high self worth, then you will have lasting and true confidence. But, and hear this, but you might feel confident because you are really good at meeting the conditions that make you lovable or valuable.
Hmm.
So I'm going to give you some examples of that.
People
The
please.
high achiever is always successful. The high achiever feels so confident when they're consistently successful because they're always doing the thing that they believe gives them value. And it's on a
Mhm.
subconscious level. They don't even know that this is going on most of the time. The perfectionist is always put together, are always perfect. They're on top of everything. The helper, the giver, the doer manages to continually serve others well. Okay, but how does each of these people feel when they don't or can't meet those conditions? So this is where this whole confidence becomes very conditional
Mhm.
versus high self-worth. A sign of that is, can you love yourself when you're achieving and when you're failing? Can you think highly of yourself when you're put together and when you're a mess? When you can't do everything for other people, are you still able to recognize that you have value in their eyes? That you just inherently are valuable? Can you get to a place where you actually believe that your presence alone is enough for people to want you in their life? That was a big one for me. Elizabeth, damn, you're gosh. Damn, you're good. Okay, so anybody relate to any of those? To being the high achiever, the perfectionist, or the helper slash the giver? Yeah,
Yeah.
I have definitely been all of these, but mine are
Mhm.
mostly the perfectionist and the helper. There are also there are lots of different kind of archetypes that are similar to that as well. And so thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate you. You're good too. Okay, so myth number 4. And we've touched on this a little bit. Yeah, me too, Rhonda. So my self-worth only affects me. It being super high or being super low only affects me. Huge, huge myth. Not true. Your relationship with yourself will impact every other relationship you have. So this is kind of like you're talking about, Ava, business relationships, friendships, family relationships. And so have you ever heard this quote? You don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you.
Yep.
And I think another thing that I love to teach on is triggers, getting to the root of our triggers and kind of healing those. And so that really ties into self-worth, because our triggers are usually where we are. Let me think of a good way to sum this up. When we're triggered by something, it is because we feel exposed in that what we thought gave us value all of a sudden is not holding up. So let's see. So in other words, if I am the perfectionist, and maybe part of that is feeling like I always have to be right. I need to be right. I need to be on top of things. I need to be put together. And all of a sudden, when someone points out that I'm wrong, I feel really blindsided. I, get all like, my face gets really red. I'm getting like really upset. I'm like, feeling very on edge and feeling very triggered. Why? Because all of a sudden I can't meet the condition that made me valuable, or somebody else is seeing through my system to earn value. And so our triggers are super related to our self-worth. They're often tied to a belief that has served us for a long time, but isn't actually true. Okay, so what are some signs that your self-worth could use some TLC, other than the fact that you are a human being? Because as we talked about, everybody could use some work on this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give some examples, and I'm going to give some more specifics on it too. So I have a symptom, and then I have like more examples related to it. So when I flip to the next slide, everyone, I would love for you to, because you'll have a minute while I read through them. If you relate to any, please put them in the comments. If you're like, yep, that one's me, I would love to hear it. I love to talk about these things. So symptom number 1, you struggle with comparison. Okay, so do you ever compare your successes to someone else's? Do you ever compare your relationship or lack thereof to someone else's? So this could be like, their relationship seems better than mine, or since I primarily work with single women, a lot of them come to me telling me, I see like my sister who's younger than me in this amazing relationship, and I just feel like I can't stop comparing myself to her. Like, I should be there. Why am I not there? So that's a big one that I see. Do you ever compare your body or physical appearance to others? I feel like in the day and age of social media and pictures and Photoshop and Hollywood and everything, this one is like, pretty much everyone struggles with that on some degree. Or maybe it's even comparing how you look now to how you looked a few years ago. Yeah. So
I would honestly say that that the negative side of social media feeds all 3 of those points.
Yeah.
As I was reading it, I'm like, oh yeah, totally. And we live in a culture where we're constantly told or taught to compare ourselves to, and especially with the number 1, like the first one, I bring this up a lot, where like in anything sales, because I do real estate too, and it's like your competition's not sleeping, blah 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 blah, and it's like, you're not working hard enough, you need it, all of this. It's like we're constantly put up to this measuring stick, and it's like, who's measuring, so it's like this imaginary scale that we hold ourselves up to, that's with this unattainable goal, so
Yes. Yeah, totally. I 100%, 100%. It's like these standards that we hold ourselves to, and we don't really realize we're doing this, but most of us on a subconscious level are withholding love from ourselves unless we meet certain conditions.
yeah,
So it's like, unless I look this way, then I don't have value, or I'm not lovable, or I'm not lovable enough for someone else to want me.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, we got another man in the house. Justin's here.
these triggers come from approval. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think even like related to that one too, approval-based conditioning, we get a lot of people pleasing.
Hmm.
100%. Yeah. Awesome. So, all right. Any other thoughts on this one before we go on to symptom number 2? All right, I'm going to continue on, but y'all can add more comments or questions or thoughts. So, symptom number 2, you have repeated unhealthy patterns in relationships and dating. Okay. So, pretty self explanatory, but I'm going to give you a bunch of examples. And once again, if you relate to any of these, if you've repeated any of these, pop them in the chat. I mean, if you feel comfortable with that, but we're all no judgment here. I think pretty much everyone will feel called out to some degree by the end of this. So, all right. So, dating patterns, relationship patterns. Do you have a history of dating emotionally unavailable men? That was me for a long time. Do you have a history of staying in relationships long after you know things aren't working? Long after you know this is not the person for you, or that there's really not a future with this person? Do you have a history of going after people that aren't what you want long term? And like you kind of know that pretty off the bat. Do you have a history of choosing people who can't or won't fully choose you back? So this might be like situationships where someone is physically available to you but not emotionally available, or emotionally available but not physically, and there's just like this weird thing where you're getting half of a relationship. They can't fully or won't fully choose you back. Another example of that could be people that you have to fix or who need to grow in order to show up for you in the relationship. So I similarly had a history of doing this, and it kind of ties in with the dating emotionally unavailable men, where I felt like love had to be hard. I felt like we had to overcome something.
Hmm.
And that thing that had to be overcome was often him needing to do more work. I also needed to do more work, but I didn't realize that. The more healed version of me just doesn't even, go after people like that anymore. But I was in this paradigm where I felt like in order for them to show me I was worth it, I needed them to overcome this huge obstacle to be there for me. That was the kind of person that I continually chose. Another one could be avoiding dating altogether. So some of my clients, especially like in their early 20s, um, have become super, or even there was a girl I talked to who she was in her late 20s, and she had been basically just swept along like on the roller coaster of relationships, and got to a point where she was like, I'm done. And so she was so avoidant of dating at all because she just didn't want that rejection again. She didn't want to have to face potentially getting hurt again. And then another one would be self-sabotaging potentially good relationships. So maybe this looks like constantly looking for reasons why there's something wrong with that person, or kind of creating walls, creating excuses to why you can't be with someone who maybe is a little healthier, because it probably feels really exposing. It probably feels like, oh no, they're gonna like see all these things about me, and I don't want that because of where I'm at with my self-worth. I think that if they see those things, they won't think I'm worth, choosing or worth being with. So, all right, now that was a lot of points. Any questions about those, or do you guys relate to any of those? Yeah. Yeah, Ava. Yeah. Was
Hmm.
there one in particular that you related to?
Um, Let me see. One,
To
two,
expose
three.
yourself?
I mean, I talk about I reveal a lot on my channel. So, one, two, three, uh, four. So
I do
definitely the
all of
first
these too,
four.
so
The first four for sure.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of those can be very related as well too. So kind of different sides of the same problem. Okay, and this is another one too that might be a little confusing to explain, but symptom number 3 is that you're over functioning in your masculine, especially as a woman. Um,
Mhm.
see, okay, don't worry, you don't have to. You don't have to. I
That's
appreciate the vulnerability that you're willing to share. So, okay, over functioning in your masculine. So, as women, we do have elements of masculinity and we have elements of femininity. And so we, as healthy individuals, want to be an integrated, balanced version of that. We're going to be a lot more feminine energy than masculine, usually. That is usually what feels best and what feels typically that's what's healthiest when you actually are more integrated. That's typically what that ends up looking like when we are super in our masculine and often in an unhealthy way, it often looks like proving energy. So, trying to prove that we have value, trying to prove that we can do everything on our own. That's the whole kind of being super independent and don't need a man. My question is if you have to advertise that you don't need a man, like, do you do you actually believe that?
right. Or not.
Like, yeah, like, I think if I felt insecure about my own capabilities on my own, I would probably, like, try to convince people. So it's also there's a convincing energy of it too. Yeah, like, I remember um, I was at a church group thing, and I was at a table with mostly new people. It was a bunch of, like, 20s and 30s, age group, and I think in the 30, maybe 45 minutes that I spent, like, actually having conversations with this group of people, there was one guy who told me at least 4 times that he was just really genuine. He was
Oh,
really authentic.
I
And
love
that's
when
why
people
people
do
liked
that.
him so much, and I was like,
I'm a nice person.
yeah. Like,
Okay.
I'm a good guy. I'm a
Yeah.
nice guy. Yeah, it's the same energy. It's the same energy of like, okay, sister, if you really believe that you are capable, that you do have value, that you yeah, like all those things, you wouldn't feel the need to advertise it.
Hmm.
You could talk about it in an authentic, like, yeah, this is just kind of where I'm at, and I'm like proud of myself for being able to do these things. But that's different. That's different from the whole I don't need a man, I can do everything on my own. So yes, a lot of that is proving. And so the kind of the 2 points under that I would qualify as probably proving energy. And kind of what we talked about, maybe you feel super confident when you're put together, achieving, successful, but then you beat yourself up when you're not, or you feel really defeated, deflated, or frustrated. And then, yes, tending to be super independent. And this can also look like struggling to accept help. So, a big part of healthy femininity is the ability to receive love, to receive support, to receive help. And so, if we can't do that, or we are super opposed to it, that's kind of like a warning light should be going off, and you're like, oh, that's an invitation to look inward. And then when we're constantly in the proving or the doing energy, we're going to have more of a tendency to feel burned out and overworked. Another part of this being very much in your, or like over functioning in your masculine, is that you're in your headspace all the time. You're likely very disconnected from your body and from your emotions. You're kind of on like the hamster wheel. You just keep going and keep going. And then as far as the doing energy, this tends to attract more men that you have to take care of or you have to chase after, instead of feeling like they're pursuing you and they're taking care of you. So if you're operating a lot in your doing and proving energy, you're often going to attract a lot of men who want you to mother them. So if you have a history of that, being the one kind of chasing, yeah, that's a good indicator that there's some things related to self-worth, self-value to look into. And then I think this is the last one I have. You minimize your wants, needs, and desires. In other words, you feel really disconnected from yourself and from your own voice. So, do you, all these things, struggle to ask for help? Kind of related to the last one. Do you feel like setting boundaries or maybe advocating for yourself has to be really difficult, or does it feel difficult, and does it feel extreme? So often, I will see people do this sort of thing where like they'll let people steamroll them, and then all of a sudden it's a brick wall, they're blocked, they're cut off. That would indicate a lot of subconscious beliefs about how conflict is, about what has to function, or how things function. And also, often that person doesn't feel like their feelings or their needs matter that much. And so they allow people to walk all over them until they finally hit their limits, versus someone who knows that their needs matter, knows that their feelings are important. Something's going to happen once, maybe twice, then be like, hey, that actually doesn't feel super good. It can be super casual unless there's some huge incident. But having extreme boundaries is a good indicator of someone struggling to believe that their feelings are important, that their needs are important, and that they matter enough for other people to take them into consideration. Related to that is feeling a lot of resistance towards sharing your feelings when someone else hurts you. If you ever feel like this person did something and I'm just going to sweep it under the rug, or another one, a lot of people do, take space from that person. I'm just going to distance myself. I'm just going to kind of back away from that relationship for a little bit. And sometimes that is necessary, but often we use that as a cop-out to not actually have a vulnerable, honest conversation with someone about how we feel. Struggling to say no is a big one as well. It's kind of related to boundaries. Having trouble identifying your own needs. Okay, poll. Has anyone in this audience ever been the person where you're like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm like going through these things, and people are like, how can I help you? Like, what can I help you with? What do you need? And you're just like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know. So disconnection from your own needs. When people ask you what you need, you don't even know. You don't even know. And you're like, how am I supposed to ask for what I need if I don't know what I need? Elizabeth, yeah. You're also, I think you're in a new season of life too. So I feel like as we enter new seasons of life, it's kind of like an adjustment of like, oh, I have more needs now, or I have different needs now, different things I need to ask for. And then, okay, this is another common one, doing a lot for other people, but often feeling unsupported in your friendships and relationships.
Yeah.
So again, this goes back to often the kind of like helper sort of archetype, where we're like, if I do something for you, that means I get my needs met, right? Right. And there's this like thing where we feel like we're not allowed to just directly ask for what we need, or it feels really scary, or it feels like it's going to make us too much if we do. So that's often where that comes from. There's often an expectation of like, well, if I do all these things for you, then obviously you should turn around and do those things for me. But the problem is that we all have different backgrounds. We all have different expectations. And so people can't read our minds, or they don't know how we would want to be supported best. So clear communication. All right. And then another one, you feel like your friends, or you feel like you know your friends deeply, but they don't really know you.
Hmm.
So like, I know all these things about my friends. I like ask them all these things and know all these things about their lives, but I don't really feel like they know me on a deep level. And then the last one is that you perhaps feel frustrated. The last three are kind of related. Feel frustrated that others don't match your level of intentionality in friendships and relationships. Mhm. And that's often kind of going back to like, well, if I do this, you should too. When really there's a lot of clear communication that would be a better way to get those needs met. That a lot of us just don't know. We haven't seen that. It's like something new that we have to learn. So, all right, opportunity to share slash reflect. Did anything in here surprise you? Was anything new or unexpected? And did you recognize yourself in any of these slides? I think a lot of you did kind of make comments like, "Yeah, that's me." um, so let's see. Yeah, did you have any Ava that came up for you that you were like, "Oh, I was kind of surprised by that." Elizabeth. Oops. Let me see. Do you see her comment?
Yeah, I just did. Um, Let me see. None that I was like surprised
Mhm.
at, but it was just like it just makes so much sense. It like the symptoms and then like what the belief could be tied to behind it or how
Mhm.
it presents itself. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, I recognize that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've experienced that. Yep, I've
Yeah.
experienced that. So it was just a lot of it hit home. So
Yeah.
several of the things, it's like I've become more aware of and I've been like actively working through. And there's some that I'm very aware of that I'm like still in the whole process of getting
Yeah.
to the healthy side of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely,
it's
definitely. Yeah. Totally recognized a lot in me.
mm,
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Rhonda. Um, yeah, I tend to work with a lot of like the same kinds of people. And so I see a lot of these same challenges come up and they're slightly different forms, but
mhm,
yeah, a lot of the symptoms that I shared are the things that I see the most when talking to people. So it makes sense. Makes sense. Mhm. And so here's the question. Do you want to discover your inner worthy woman and stop settling for halfway love? If you do, come to the masterclass on Saturday. So we're going to actually talk a bit about like how do you practically make some shifts related to your self-worth. So we talked a lot about like what are some symptoms that your self-worth needs some TLC tonight. And so the master class is going to be more of like how do you actually shift this? Um, and so let's see. Oh, we have another question.
it's a comment.
Oh, comment. Give it a try. Wait, I think I'm lost.
He's being funny. He's saying that he like overgave and like tried to save, but it didn't work out. So
Oh,
yeah, that's been a lot of us, I'm sure.
yeah. Yeah. I definitely relate to that. So yeah, here are my links. And then if anyone does want to register for the masterclass, it's in my link tree. So I didn't know like where I could put that. I think you have a lot of the things, Ava, but
I
yeah, so
pinned the link also to the top of the chat. So if anyone wants to check it out, or even the guys here, guys, if you have friends, sisters,
mhm,
daughters,
yeah,
any like another woman in your life, even the women in here, if you have daughters, nieces, whatever, who you think this would be great for, definitely share, please. Um, yeah, but it's pinned up in the top of the YouTube chat, and it's
perfect.
also in Emily's link tree is in the description box too,
Yes,
with
yeah, and
all the
so all these
information.
yeah, all these links below are in the link tree as well. So yeah, cool. Well, okay, that's it for this little presentation. So let me see. How do I stop sharing? Am I still sharing?
Um, Like
There we
that.
go.
There we
Perfect.
go.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you guys so much for being such great listeners, even though you
Yeah.
couldn't talk. So
Thank y'all for being here. I mean, this is like 3 back-to-back lives for a lot, like
oh my gosh.
because like I said, we hopped channels.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, you guys or ladies and gent, I don't know if Justin's still in here, but check out the link. I signed up for the 9 a.m., so I'm gonna be there. And there's a couple other people who I've spoken to already that like within our community who have also signed up. So yeah, you all, I would totally encourage you if you want to rediscover your worthiness and your personal power. Definitely go through and join us on Saturday and support Emily too. So
Yeah, thank you. It's gonna be so fun. And like honestly, it's not just like supporting me. Like one of the things I talked about on my story the other day is like if you realize that you are struggling with thanks, Rhonda. I'm glad that it was helpful. Um, if you are struggling with your self-worth, one powerful thing that you can do is like invest in yourself. And this is a super small way to do that. The workshop is only $25. But really investing like not just in like nice clothes or like your favorite, ice cream or whatever, but like in things that actually help improve the quality of your life. And so part of improving your self-worth is taking actions that align with who you say you want to be.
mhm.
And so, yeah, if this feels like an action that you feel called to, then I would love to see you there.
Yeah.
And
Justin made one comment.
I've also been a chronic overgiver. I think religious programming, as well as parental emotional distance or parental units being overly controlling, are a huge factor for many of us. Yes, 100%. And I'm not sure when you jumped in. I'm trying to remember. There was one of the slides that I feel like I briefly mentioned something related to that. Hold on, let me look back at that. Overgiving as well as parental. Oh, it was when we were talking about the myths about self-worth and about how, like, in a lot of religious backgrounds, we're taught that, like, thinking highly of ourselves
Mhm.
is bad. Like, that's wrong. We always have to think, like, put others before us or others above us. And I think that, they're being selfless is great, but ultimately we can't pour from an empty cup. So I think in a lot of ways it's kind of like backwards. And
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of theology that is kind of propped up on really bad belief systems. A lot of like shame, for example, that drives a lot of things. So totally,
Yes.
totally. Mhm. Rhonda, yes, the workshop is recorded. So you can, yeah, if you want to come, you can come live, and then I can also send you the recording afterward. And then if you cannot attend live, you can also just purchase the recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a great question. Let's see if you were sharing. We'll be sharing. Oh, but thank you so much. What is Intuitive
It's
Alchemist?
Justin.
Justin, thank you so much, Justin. That is very sweet of you. Glad that you got something out of this, even us as one of our resident dudes in the chat.
President dude. All right, Emily, thank you so much for coming on to my channel, for saying hi to everybody and sharing this goodness with us. And I'm excited to have you back for more chats. And yeah, you all check out Emily. Happy to be a resident dude. Y'all check out Emily's. Even if you're a guy, go support and like look at her channels. She has a really good TikTok, um,
I'm
Instagram as
mostly on
well.
TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, y'all subscribe to her YouTube too.
That'll motivate me to make some content for there. I think I have a video and a short, but
Yeah, I mean, we all like Justin has a channel. We all are like, hey, go. Like if somebody else is on the video, we're like, go subscribe because we just like
aw,
to prop everybody up. So
yeah, community. I love
um,
it.
it's Emily Dini coaching.
Coaching. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
it's
what my
also in. Is it on your link tree? It's on that last
yes.
page.
Yeah, I have TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube on my link tree, as well as
I'm
like
gonna
all
drop.
important links.
I'm gonna drop the link really quick in the chat.
See, I can also, do you have my link tree handy? I can pull it up too. Let's see. Let me
see. Okay, so that's.
I think I copied and pasted it. Oh, okay, yep, that's the YouTube. Emily's YouTube. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, y'all. Thank
Thanks
you so much for being here.
This was so fun. Thanks for having me. I'm definitely excited to come back and chat some more.
Awesome. All right, you all say good night to Emily. And we will see you. Well, I'll see y'all on the next video. So remember, you are sovereign, powerful, worthy, and loved. I love you all, and have a good night. Bye.